WHOIS enumeration. In this video, we're going to be exploring the process of performing WHOIS lookups to identify information regarding a particular domain. So if you're targeting a website, then it's always important to perform a WHOIS lookup to essentially get an idea as to when the site was registered, who owns it, what registrar it was registered with, so on and so forth. So again, this is I'm also going to be performing this on my Kali Linux VM. As I said, within the passive information gathering phase, you can perform this on the sites that I will be showcasing in this video. And as I said, remember that whenever you're performing checks on sites or property that you do not own, you do require authorization, and in this case I am giving you authorization to do this. So I'm just going to switch over to my Kali Linux VM. And I've just performed a quick Google search on WHOIS just so that I can explain what it is. Alright, so WHOIS, as you can see, is an internet protocol. It's essentially a query and response protocol that is widely used for querying databases that store the registered users or assignees of a particular internet resource, such as a domain name, an IP address block, or an autonomous system. So in this case, we're essentially going to be utilizing it in the context of a particular domain name. So there's tons of WHOIS lookup websites online, like for example who.is, but we'll be firstly taking a look at the actual we'll be taking a look at the command line utility available in Kali Linux. So if I type in WHOIS and hackersploit.org and hit enter, we'll give this a couple of seconds. And you can see it's going to output quite a lot of information. So the information it'll output is the actual domain name itself, the registry domain ID, the registry WHOIS server. So in this case, it tells us it's whois.namecheap.com, which means that this domain was registered with Namecheap, and that's confirmed through the registrar URL. When this domain was renewed or updated, when it was created, so you can see 2018, and it was recently renewed in February of 2022. Okay, so you guys know when I renew my domains or this particular domain. And of course, it tells us when this domain will expire, which is 2023. We also get the actual registrar abuse contact email and the phone, but this is really not important. What we're looking for is going to be the actual, let's see if I can find it here, the name server, which in this case points to Cloudflare, which makes sense, as I've already mentioned that in the previous video. But we can see that in this case, DNSSEC is enabled, which means that information like the owner of the domain, like, my personal name, my address, is all redacted. Now, if I ran this on another website, for example, let's just showcase it right now because we are going to be exploring it. And that, of course, is zone transfer. Let me see if I can type that in, transfer.me. This is a website that's set up to teach students or individuals about, DNS zone transfers. But we can, essentially just run a quick WHOIS on it. So WHOIS zone transfer.me. And you can see that this will display, does it display any more information? Yeah, so it actually displays information, in this case, like the registrant organization, in this case DigiNinja, the registrant state, which is Routerville. So that was set up, again, as I said, it's there to teach you about DNS. So this is going to be really just information that's there to toy with you. But you can see we have the registrant country, like in this case Great Britain, and then the name servers, which again in this case look like they're going through their own name servers, which is quite interesting in and of itself. But you'll typically gain information like the actual owner of the website, unless that information is protected or redacted. If we take a look at the WHOIS lookup sites like who.is, we can also run the same query. It essentially does the same thing. So hackersploit.org, and you can see it'll essentially tell us what we were already able to obtain. So in this case, we can see that the registrant contact information for some reason is listed here, But I can confirm that this is incorrect because you can see that that looks kind of random. Actually, this is in Iceland, but I can tell you for a fact that I'm not in Iceland. But the name is redacted for privacy, and the privacy service provided by my registrar, which is Cloudflare, has protected my information from being leaked. Now, this is going to be the case in most cases, but in some cases you may find domains with this information this information will be publicly exposed. So it could also give you the email address of the individual who owns the domain, which again can be used for a phishing attack. I'm not, giving you any ideas, but I'm just, telling you how penetration testers will typically use this information. But that's pretty much it with regards to WHOIS. It again can also be performed on an IP address. So for example, we can perform it on one of the the name server IPs here for Cloudflare. Of course, I don't recommend doing this, but let's just see what this brings up. So you can see it doesn't bring up anything here. However, if we go ahead and run the host command on hackersploit.org and we, maybe perform a WHOIS lookup directly from our terminal, let's see what this brings up. There we are. So you can see this is owned by Cloudflare, which makes sense. This is an actual IP block or a block of IP addresses. So when you're performing a WHOIS lookup on an IP address or a block of IPs, this is what will be displayed. So we have the network range, the CIDR annotation or the subnet range, if you will, the network name. In this case, it is Cloudflare Net, which makes sense. The organization is Cloudflare. When it was registered, the date it was updated on or renewed on. The organization information is displayed here. So this is very important if we were targeting an organization. So, in this case, the organization is Cloudflare Inc. or Incorporated. Organization ID, the address, city, etc. And then, of course, we have the various emails associated with abuse and customer support. So there we are. Those are all displayed here. So there we go. So that is going to conclude the practical demonstration